I'm Tammy Williams, and this is Naturally Brown Woman. This is a natural resource for and about women of color. So, you've always wanted to work in the film industry. You want to work in the hair department, the hair and makeup department. And you're trying to figure out, how do I get started? How do I go from salon to set? Who do I need to meet? Who do I need to talk to? What do I need to do? Well, today we have somebody you've got to know, that you need to meet. The show today is all about, how do you transition from salon to set? How do you get in the film industry? So welcome to Naturally Brown Woman, Demi Dixon, who is a beauty coach and celebrity hairstylist. Welcome, Demi.
Thank you so much, Tammy, for having me.
Oh, it is a pleasure. You have been doing so many great things in the film industry. And we know, let's see, you have worked on the upcoming Coming to America 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that.
Yes,
You've worked on The Trap.
Yes.
Black Panther.
Yes.
What else? Greenleaf.
Greenleaf, Boomerang.
Uh-huh.
I have worked on a movie with Jack Black and Kate Blanchett, A House with the Clock in Its Walls. That was a great movie.
Yes.
You know, just so many things that have been filmed in Atlanta in the last 10 years. It was just, it's a limitless amount of things, so TV and film, definitely. I've worked on a lot of major things here in Atlanta, Greenleaf being the longest run for about 4 years.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing how the industry just boomed here in Atlanta, just providing a lot of opportunities for people to work in the film industry. So, and you've been doing this for a while now. You didn't just kind of start in the film industry. So you started in a salon. You were in a salon. So tell us, what sparked your interest? What made you say, hey, I've been in the salon for a while. Now I want to transition from salon to set. What piqued your interest?
Honestly, I'm gonna be totally honest. My interest the entire time of my career was to work behind the scenes or with celebrities. From the moment I knew that I was going to be a hairstylist, I kind of fixated in my brain that I wasn't going to always be in the salon. Yeah. So one day I went to the movies, and I think I was 17 years old, and I saw Babs, the movie Babs.
I remember that, yeah.
I think that was like 1996 or something like that. And I was like, I'm going to stay to the end of this movie because I need to know who did the hair for this movie. And at that point, at 17 years old, I knew that my work needed to be on that level for some reason. Wow.
Yeah.
And, it didn't happen right away, but ultimately I kept that as my vision and my plan, and it came into fruition and manifested.
Yeah. So how did you make that transition? First of all, how long did you work in the salon? How long were you behind the chair?
I was actually behind the salon chair for a total of 17 years. I basically transitioned at least after about 5 years into my career in the salon, I started to make a transition where I would start doing small projects, music videos, photo shoots for entertainers and comedy shows. So that's how I got my feet wet. And I did that for a few years because the film industry in Atlanta wasn't as big as it is now.
Right.
And mind you, I am a native of Columbus, Georgia. So I was traveling back and forth, doing a lot of work as needed while I was in the salon and transitioning. So the transition, it probably took about a good 10 years to happen altogether.
Oh, wow. Now, let me ask you, as you were, I see you made a lot of sacrifice just to travel within itself, but also working on those small independent projects. Did all of those projects actually pay? Did you find yourself volunteering just to get some experience in the other area, or you take low pay? How did that pan out?
All of that, absolutely. There were many times, because I wanted to build relationships and network with people, that I would take jobs that were either unpaid, or I was assisting the main person, or very low pay. So there were times where, yes, I made financial sacrifices from taking clients in the salon where I knew I could make money, as opposed to following the desire of doing what I knew that I truly wanted to do. So I've worked a lot in the past for comp, time for print, all of those things. I've done them.
Yeah, and the goal is just to get the experience. You were willing to do what you had to do to build your resume, to go into the field that you desire to go into.
Absolutely.
So, and you talked about, in the film industry, it's like independent contractors, freelancers, and working to get your next gig. Right. So was that very different from you, for you, as far as being in salon, and maybe you had a very steady clientele versus, okay, this is something different.
Yeah, absolutely. It was because if you have a clientele built, you can pretty much manage out your schedule for at least a month. In transition, or in starting to transition to work into the film industry, you may work 2 days and don't get a call back for a month. So those are times where you really have to start prepping yourself and your clients for a more flexible schedule so that you can, get on a faster track.
Was that tough, in the sense of you still have your salon and you're trying to go out there and do freelance and having to reschedule your clients? Was everybody understanding, or did you lose any clients along the way?
At times it was very tough. It was tough sometimes because for me, I always wanted to do, great big things. And when you come from a small place, and these are people that I truly love, but sometimes they don't understand a vision that they don't see. So where I'm from, you didn't see celebrities. This wasn't something you had access to. So it was really hard to break free from my clients. It was really hard for them to break free from me. But most of all, it was just tough juggling the two two schedules. I still had a salon schedule that I had to, kind of accommodate. And then over here, you're gonna take a chance. So it was a real struggle at times until I figured it out. I created a system and figured that thing out.
Well, and we're gonna talk about that system for sure. I'm a hairdresser's daughter. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So my mom ran a salon and was behind the chairs for years. She's now retired, but I know how loyal clients can be. I mean, the hairstylist is like becomes your personal friend, and just so personal. Someone who does your hair, and you just want to hang on to them. So I can imagine when you're like, it's like, wait, where are you going? Because it's such
it was hard. They were like, no, and some of them still because for a while, up until 2 years ago, I serviced my clients still on the weekends. I had such an attachment to my clients, so I had to learn. I just had to put my best foot forward and say, sorry guys, this is how it's got to be. So it was a stronghold.
Yeah. So let's talk about when you finally made, and you said about 10 years. Now I want you to clarify, is 10 years as far as being where you are today with a pretty regular schedule? Or like you said, you did some work here and there, but 10 years as far as your final destination?
Well, I would say this: for the last 10 years, I have had a very regular schedule in behind the scenes as well as in the salon. But prior to that, I count the moments where I knew that I was making the steps into the direction that I was trying to go in. So that was early on in my career. So with me, still having a clientele and juggling two things. Yes, it took that amount of time simply because I still had a business to run.
Okay, so now your first time on a feature film set, what was that experience like for you? The first time you're in that trailer and you're working with a celebrity, what was that like for you?
It was very scary because when you're working with clients, you kind of have a little bit of control. When you're working with the celebrities now, you've relinquished it, and everything is up to them, and you're more accommodating. So it was scary, but it started to come natural. So it was the best feeling, though. I remembered having thoughts about that feeling, and how I would feel when that happened, and I was like, my work has truly paid off. I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. So tell us, and there's no better place to kind of know that this is where I'm supposed to be. And I think there's added confidence in that when you know where you're supposed to be. So what are the do's and don'ts in working with celebrities that you've discovered? What are some of the do's and don'ts? Because we're talking about actors,
Yes.
and character, in and out of character. What do you say? Do you call them by name? You call them by their character name? Do you just be quiet just in case they need to, they're processing? What are the do's and don'ts?
Well, one of the first do's that I would say when you get into that position is to make sure you have a good consultation with that person, because they're still a client. So in that consultation, you'll learn things about them that you don't have to try to wait to figure out. You'll learn if they're chatty. You'll learn if they work out. So learn some things about your person first, because that matters when someone is sitting in your chair. I mean, it all rings the same to me when I'm touching someone's head, when I'm with the client. I treat it the exact same. So I make sure that I find out about them, so that will give me conversation when it's time to talk, when they feel necessary time to talk. Because like you said, as actors and talents are preparing and reading their scripts, they don't always want noise. So you have to get to know them first, so that you can at least know that they don't want that, and ask questions of what people like. So that's always the first thing I tell people. One of the things that you should do is talk with that person, so that you know how to assess moving forward. One of the things I say not to do is ask them about personal things that you probably read on the tabloids or in Instagram. I have seen that happen.
Oh my God, I can imagine.
Yeah. So don't do that.
Don't do
Everything you read and see on the internet is not true. And people, they're, even though they're actors and they're in character, and sometimes we look at TV and we think, oh, she's this or that. They're not that person always in real life.
Yeah.
So that's a huge don't in my book.
Don't get too personal, and don't
get too personal. Keep it real surface and professional. It's a way to keep it fun and professional at the same time. You want to always make sure that they're comfortable. The trailer is light. You want to create a vibe that they want to wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning and be happy to come to. And that's part of the hair and makeup's job, is setting that tone so that the character, the talent can come into character.
Then you also have to work with producers and directors. You have to work with that side of the crew as well, people on set, and the things such as consistency, and making sure that whatever scene that was shot yesterday and they're shooting the scene over again that day, that the hair and all that is consistent. So tell us a little bit about that production side of working in the hair, working with hair on film.
What I would say, as far as working on the production side, is learn the politics. Learn the things you need to know, the lingo, the language, the etiquette that you need to know in order to learn how to properly interact with producers and directors. Because a lot of times as artists, hairstylists, and makeup artists, they don't understand our jobs, and it's not their jobs to understand our jobs to the capacity that we understand it. But what I do find a real confidence in is learning the language, so that I can properly, relay it and help them to understand what it is that we do. So that's one of the biggest things, learn how to properly communicate outside of hair in our mind.
Yeah, those production terms,
Production
all those
terms.
production
It's a
terms.
different, it's
It's
a
a whole nother
different
world.
thing.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a whole nother world. And yeah, learning those terms and
Yeah.
that's just so important.
Yeah.
Because they call for certain things on set and from lab.
And learning what their true vision is. And that just comes from being a visionary and an artist.
Yeah. And also the research that's involved. If someone says, okay, this is a 1950s timepiece, well, researching and finding out, what did the hair look like back then? And
it's a lot of homework and a lot of prep work that goes into this side of it, because you can't get to work and shampoo, blow dry, style, and do all of that. You have to have it prepped so that when they come in the trailer, you're ready to rock and roll. It's a whole, it's a different and a faster pace.
Yeah. And you know what, Demi, we talked about set hours. You and I've had this discussion before of being on set, typically production, 10, 12, 11 hours, but in hair and makeup, those hours, are far, far beyond that. Talk about how many your average hours on set.
Well, pre-COVID, you could sometimes spend 15 up to 16 hours on set in a day. Usually you can spend up to 16 hours on set, being that you sometimes will have a 2 to 3 hour pre-call, which means you have an earlier call than the rest of the crew, simply because you have to get the talent, hair, and makeup ready. And sometimes, that takes a little while. So we have earlier calls. And of course, hair and makeup is there until the end of the night, because we have to make sure the looks are consistent up until the very last shot, until they say wrap. So our hours are typically long, based on having to come in earlier to prepare for them to go on camera, and then having to stay with the talent. So they can get pretty gruesome. And that's something that you have to, make sure that you're aware of, because there are not many 8-hour days in the film and television industry.
Yeah. And speaking of that, how do you maintain a family life? Because I know you're married with children, and being on set, prior to COVID, like we said, was long hours. How do you manage a household?
I'm so grateful. God has truly blessed me. I have a great support system. I'm not gonna lie. But what I came into this portion full throttle after my children were old enough to at least stay at home by themselves sometimes. So that's one thing that I'm grateful that happened. But other than that, my husband and my mom and my sisters have been the biggest support system that I can ever imagine. So I always tell people, if you have a family, that is a very huge factor, because you got kids at home, you can't be out 15 hours a day every single day. And you have to have someone, to support that. So it hasn't been always easy, because as you have children with events and functions, my children were in activities, you have to find time to still be a mother and go to activities. So there will be times where you have to decide if it's going to be this or that. And so that's been part of the journey, and sometimes part of the ups and downs.
So let's talk about a little bit about how the industry has changed, that you've seen it change now because of COVID. How are you guys protecting yourselves? Because, the film industry has started, picking up, especially here in Atlanta. Productions are going on. And how do you work on set and working with celebrities? I know a lot have changed. So talk about that.
Yeah, a lot has changed. Actually, I had the opportunity to be one of the first people to go back to work for Tyler Perry Studios when he decided to be the first production to open back up. And I did that because I just wanted to see what it would be like, now having to work. And I can honestly say, it was worth all the protection, because imagine if we always protect ourselves and others that way. So I felt like it was 100% necessary, the way that he, it was really, really laid out. PPE is on point guys.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
And now I haven't worked since then, and that was the early part of August. So I'm just getting back to work starting next week. I have a department head job in Charlotte for a new owned series called Delilah. And we have had at least 4 COVID tests already.
Okay.
We will have 3 times a week COVID testing.
Yes.
While we're with the talent. So that's a difference, you know, at least 3 days a week while if you're around talent, you have to have a COVID test. And, you know, it's just a lot of different precautions that we weren't doing prior to COVID, simply because, you know, we didn't have this issue going on. So now we're having to protect one another more, be more cautious, stay away from people. And so it's going to make for a smaller crew because they have to have less people on set and things of that nature. So I'm excited to see what it's going to be like for a full length show. To just kind of, you know, have a better judgment of how things, you know, are looking.
Yeah. Now, when you were, you mentioned having to do COVID tests, you know, 3 times a week, that type of thing. And when you were with TP Studios, I don't know if you can share having the test, but did you also have to wear a shield when you were with? What are some of the things that you had to do?
Yeah, we had to have a test. We had to be tested every single day and put a wristband on before we went to set. We had to wear our N95 mask. You can't just wear any type of mask when you're around town. You have to wear a certain style. And you also have to wear a face shield. So you're having on a mask and a face shield. And just depending on whatever the situation is, you may even have to sometimes put on a gown. You know, I didn't have to, but some people did. So it's definitely something it's going to take some getting used to, especially in exterior, wearing your mask outside, things of that nature. That's going to be a little different. And that's something that I had to, you know, kind of adjust to, like, okay, we're outside. Let me take this mask off. But no, we're filming. So it's a difference.
So, and all that protection is definitely worth it. Like you said, you know, we've got to protect each other and protect ourselves as well. So, Demi, as we, you know, come to a close here, I know you're doing some amazing things in continuing to train people. I know you have workshops, you have classes, and hopefully you and I are going to be doing some special things in the future as well. And talk a little bit about your transitional salon. I want people to know about that you recently opened a transitional salon. So what is that, and how can someone get involved?
Oh, yeah, that's something that was birthed based upon how I needed to transition personally. So basically, as I was transitioning, which started more than 13 years ago, I ran into some obstacles, like, you know, the first obstacle being, you know, who's going to take care of my clients when I'm not here? So that was one of the reasons why I decided, you know, to have a salon that would cater to a hairstylist's flexibility. So I teach people how to transition from the salon to behind the scenes without leaving money on the table, which simply means you don't have to leave your business behind. I've seen a lot of salon owners and hairstylists, once they get into the film and television industry, they leave their beauty business behind. And I found out that, you know, my business could still thrive even without me being there. So I created a system that meant that, you know, I was able to help other people transition while I was transitioning. And ultimately, my salon became a space where people could come and work if they needed a flexible schedule. If you need to work 1 day a week or 5 days a week, I provide the opportunities because I know how flexible you have to be when you're transitioning. And sometimes, you know, you have to make last minute changes. So the first thing I tell people is prepare your clients, because they don't understand that you got a call yesterday for tomorrow and they already had their appointment booked for 2 weeks. So the transition has to be you know, going into the transition has to go in steps and phases if you plan to keep your business.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the purpose of my salon. For people who truly do want to keep their beauty business, but they also want to work on set, because sometimes you have to do both. Financially, you know, it's something you have to do until you get to where you're, you know, having a steady, until you're working more steadily behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much the reason of my creating that salon, because I knew the need of the people, because it was what I needed. I needed a space that I can just go in, do my clients 1 or 2 days a week and be done with it.
Right.
And so I created a space like that. And since I opened in January, it's been doing amazing. Even after COVID, you know, people wanted that. They wanted to be able to not have contracts, not be in long-term agreements. Hey, I have clients today. Can I come do them in your salon? Yeah, and more than anything, some of my celebrity stylist friends have been able to come to Atlanta and work in my space because they have clients here. You know, my friend Kim Kimball from LA comes here to do her clients, and now she has a space to do them.
You know what? I think you've hit on a gold mine right there. I love that idea, a new way of doing a salon. Really love that. So last question, Demi. Why do you do the things that you do? Why do you work in hair? What's your passion with hair? Because there's got to be a passion there to do that as long as you have. You know, what's your driving force?
Well, I love doing what I do, which is being a hairstylist. But deeper than that, I love people. I do. I love making women feel beautiful on the inside and outside. I grew up, my mother was a foster parent, so I saw the need of young girls needing to understand beauty to the core. And I do it, that's the passion that's behind it, because I love people, I love women, I love making women understand how important it is to be beautiful from the inside and the outside. So that keeps me going more than anything. The motivation, the inspiration and encouragement that I can give to people, just based on my own personal things that I've gone through and professional. And so it gives me hope that people actually listen to some of the things that I say and apply them and come back to me and say, hey, Demi, or hey, Demetrius, that truly worked. Thank you. So now it's time to get to the next, you know. So that's what keeps me going every single time.
I understand that you have a book. You've written a book. So tell us about your book and then tell us how we can connect with you.
Okay, great. For people that needed a quick guide or a quick reference on information that they needed to know, I decided to write a book. I decided to put it in paper so that they can have the blueprint without, you know, having to search. Here, it's in one place, it's the blueprint, and it gets you a jump start on the things that you need to know in order to transition your career successfully from the salon to behind the scenes. It's full of information, tips that will really, really help you. And the reason I did that is because I felt like people needed a handy dandy guide with them. It's also in an ebook form. So if you like to be on your phone or your pad, you can just pull it up on an ebook. So basically, you can reach me at my website is www.demibellabeauty.com, and my Instagram is demibellabeauty, and my Facebook is demibellabeauty as well. Thank you, guys. I have really, really enjoyed this interview, Tammy. I appreciate you for having me today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And we will, guys, thank you for joining us. Please share this video with your friends. If you know anybody who wants to work in the hair department in film and television, share this video with them. Let them see and hear what's going on and how to make that move. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.